Hey, what's up, everyone? Andrew from American Musical Supply here, and I'm really fortunate today to be joined by Mr. Mark Lettieri. How you doing, Mark?
I'm great, Andrew. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Thanks for
Awesome.
taking the time to talk to us.
Yeah,
And you've
my
recently had a
pleasure.
big announcement with Paul Reed Smith Guitars last
Yeah,
week, and we're going to talk about
yeah.
that in a little bit. That's real super exciting.
Great.
But
Thank
was
you.
just wanting to get a little bit of information from maybe some of our viewers that don't know who you are. Like if you can share a little bit about your career, how you got started playing guitar, and
Sure.
so people can get to know you.
Yeah. Well, I'm really just a dude. Dude that plays guitar in some bands, man. Not,
Nice.
not that super special about my path or anything. I mean, it's probably a lot like most guitar players. I started when I was a young kid, about 11, 12 years old. Had some great teachers along the way, and just developed a passion for it pretty early on, and recognized that it was something that I was going to do the rest of my life. And around the end of college, I sort of was able to quantify it into how to turn into a career. And so I've been a product of my influences, which range from jazz to R&B to soul to progressive metal. And I do a lot of work as a recording, like a session player. I play in a couple different bands as a band member, and then I lead my own project where I write and record and produce all my own records, and as a solo artist, which is a weird thing to say, but
Right.
um, and then I work with a lot of gear companies doing demos. I do some instructional videos and educational stuff, clinics, that kind of thing. Just a little bit of everything that most working guitar players kind of need to have their hands in order to make it all work.
Right,
So
for
here we
sure.
are.
So
Yeah.
did you you mentioned that once you finished college was sort of really when you started figuring out
Mhm.
your career path. Was music something that you studied in college?
No, it wasn't. I went to school for advertising and public relations, which has been a running joke every time I post something. They're like, well, obviously this guy's an ad guy, you know? I don't know if they say that with it's as a slight or not, but yeah, it's kind of been the family business. Both of my parents worked in public relations in the tech industry when I was a kid. And they've long since retired from that, but it was a part of the dinner table conversation growing up. And so I thought that it might be interesting, and it is interesting to me, and enough for me to, I was grateful enough to get to go to college and study that. And so a lot of the things that I gleaned from my degree path, I do use today as a musician.
Gotcha. Oh, that's cool.
uh,
And
yeah.
then
So
how did you kind of make that transition or that shift from advertising
yeah.
relations over to full-time musician?
Well, it became pretty obvious. I had an internship at a PR firm and one summer when I was in college, and it was great for what it was, but I was grateful to get the experience, but I understood pretty quickly that wasn't what I wanted to be doing every day. And so after college, I also sort of found myself without a job. I sort of, I guess, slacked off on applying to jobs at various ad agencies in the area here and just didn't get hired anywhere. And so I kind of had some free time and was like, well, I guess if you're going to play the guitar for a living, now's the time to try to make that work. So I called up a friend. I was playing in a band at the time. It was like a country rock band, and the drummer had a friend who owned a little marketing sales company. And so he was like, hey man, you can come work for me part time, make some money, save up while you're doing your guitar thing. And so I'm thankful I had that kind of opportunity to kind of keep the lights on while I was running around playing gigs for $4. And so I saved up enough of that money in the $4 gigs, and then finally was like, all right, if I'm going to really do this and see what happens, I got to go in 100%. So it's probably maybe 23, I guess, when I stopped working a day job or whatever you want to call it. I don't like that word because it's just, it's a gig, it's a job. When I transitioned to being a full-time guitar player, it's about 23, 24.
That's cool. Wow. And what city is that? Is that in? Where are you based?
I'm in Fort Worth, Texas.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So there's quite
Dallas, Fort Worth Metroplex. Yeah.
Right. And there's quite I understand you've done a lot of gospel, playing with a lot of gospel artists and things. There's quite a scene there for that. And
yeah, very much so.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? And so I know some of those players kind of also dabble in the R&B world and things too.
Right. Yeah, it's all pretty related. So when I was in college, one of the musical outlets I had was the gospel choir, and I was the guitar player in the band. And there really wasn't a full band. A lot of times it was just me in a choir, but sometimes we had a drummer, or we bring in some keyboardists from a local church or something. And so I was tied into that world pretty early, and met a lot of players who play at churches around the area, and who are recording artists and session players, and tour with these bigger name gospel artists. And a lot of those players also work with R&B artists and soul artists and hip hop artists. So it's very connected. And I was drawn to it on a spiritual level, but also on just a quantifiable musical level, because it's just, everyone is so good. They can all just, the pocket, the groove, the harmony, all of it just really blew my mind. And I just had to be a part of it. And so I immersed myself in that pretty early, and I did wonders for my time feel for one, and I learned a lot of cool chords too. And I still work a lot as a session player with artists like Kirk Franklin and Fred Hammond specifically, and another gentleman named Anthony Evans. Those are sort of my three kind of main gospel artists that I work with right now. And I've been doing so for quite a long time.
Right on.
So, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Fred Hammond and Kirk Franklin are both based in that area, right? In the
they are now, yeah. Well, Kirk is from here, and
right.
I think Fred's from Detroit, but he's been here for several years. Yeah,
cool.
So yeah, man.
Oh, that's cool, awesome. So how did Snarky Puppy come out of all of that? That was, I guess, something that was a big part of your musical journey.
Sure. Yeah. And it's kind of funny because that band started at their university, where they were all jazz school people. And so that's where that band started. And they came together and started playing gigs in the Dallas area. And I met them through doing sessions and gigs in the gospel scene, because they were all kind of coming in to get a bit of that flavor as well. And so that's how I met them. And I was just a fan of the band for a while. I would go see them occasionally. I might be in a band that would share a bill with them or something. And so I had a relationship with the guys. Like I said, we had played on sessions together. Michael and I did a lot of recording together. Michael Lead, the bass player, and the drummer, Robert Seawright. The three of us would do a lot of recordings together. So I had a relationship with the fellas, and then there was just a series of gigs that the other two guitar players, Bob and Chris, couldn't do. And so I'm like, well, what are you doing this weekend? I was like, I don't, playing a wedding or something. And can you cancel that and learn 14 super hard jazz fusion songs in 2 days and come to Louisiana with us? And I was like, yeah. So then I just crammed, and that was it. So that was like probably winter of, you know what it was? It was Mardi Gras weekend of 2009. So I remember it. No, actually, I remember it probably way more than the rest of the guys too, because I was like so nervous having to nail the tunes that I did not Mardi Gras as hard as the rest of the fellas did maybe that weekend. But so that was the start of it. And then they just kind of, I don't know, they never deleted me from the email chain. And so now I just keep getting called for gigs and get a paycheck, I guess. It's like Milton in Office Space, it's like they fire him, but they keep paying him. He never really lets go. So I guess I'm still in the band. I don't know.
So who's Michael Bolton?
Yeah, right. Why do I have to change? He's the one who sucks. Yeah. One of my favorite movies of all time. I love that movie.
Awesome. And from there, you're also a solo artist too. Was that something that you were conscious of developing early in your career, or was that something that sort of came out of working inside of Snarky Puppy?
Sure. It was definitely something I've wanted to do deep down since I was 14. When I first started getting hip to instrumental guitar music, I was like, okay, I think I can do something like this someday. But I think having the confidence of playing in a band like Snarky Puppy sort of made it okay for me to take that artistic step. So I made my first solo record in 2011, just for fun, really, just to kind of like get this music out, get some friends together and record it the best way I knew how to do it. And just kind of make that first artistic statement, just so that I could say, okay, cool. Now I can see what happens now that I've done this first time, I can kind of build on it. And, for a time I was like, oh, maybe I'll never do that again. But people responded to the music. And so I was like, okay, I guess I need to listen to my 14-year-old self and make this a path that I can go down with confidence, even though I second guess myself all the time.
Right. For sure. It's always the struggle of an artist, right?
Right. Exactly.
Wow. And how did you get connected with the Fearless Flyers? I know that's something you've been doing recently too.
Yeah. Well, hey, wait a minute. I could probably, can I show you know about this?
I know.
Right?
I got my copy in the mail too.
Look at these goobers,
Right.
We were focused. Talk about focus. That's some focus. Madison Square Garden, you got to pay attention.
Right.
So thanks for doing that, by the way.
Yeah, it's our pleasure.
Hang it up on the wall there. That's awesome. Fearless Flyers was an email, man. Corey emailed me and said, well, he didn't really say much. That's kind of the joke. I was like, dude, what are we doing? Like, this email has like no information. But it was like, hey, we're doing this project. We want you to play baritone guitar. I'm going to play guitar. Joe Dart's going to play bass, and Nate Smith's hopefully going to play drums. And I was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, maybe explain to me what the hell we're doing, and then I'll agree to do it. And so he did, and I'm glad I agreed to do it. And so it was awesome. Yeah, who'd have thought just an email would turn into this whole thing? And there were plenty of surprises along the way. Like, oh, we're wearing flight suits. Okay. And the guitars are, attached to microphone stands, so it was a big kind of a cool eye-opening experience to how the Wolfpack team sort of develops things and works out their angles and it comes together in just such a wild, cool package. I just wish we could play more gigs, man. We had some really cool stuff lined up for 2020 that obviously didn't happen. So we'll get back to it eventually.
Wow.
Yeah, those are the homies, man. Love those guys.
That's cool. Very cool. Well, congratulations on Paul Reed Smith announcing the Fiore signature model.
Thank you.
And how did you get connected with them? And what's your Paul Reed Smith? I don't want to say what's your Paul Reed Smith story, but what's your, how did you?
I guess you could say that. That's
right.
That's a fair question. Yeah. So I got an email from their A&R person, Rich Hannon, back in 2016, I think. And I hadn't really had an association with PRS prior. I had my thing and my sound that I liked. And he said, well, hey, I know we've never met, never worked together, but we have this guitar called the 594. Would you be interested in checking it out? And I was like, okay, sure, man. Like, prove to me that you can, I was like that guy. And so he sent it and I was like, oh, okay. Like it really kind of turned things around for me. And I really gravitated towards this guitar a lot. And so we struck up a nice relationship. I helped them launch an amp that they did called the Sonzera, which I have right here that I use quite a bit. And so we just kind of kept up the relationship, and then they were like, hey, can we just design you something? And I was like, sure, you want to open that can of worms? And so that was the process. So that probably has been about a year, 13 months in development for the Fiore, of me and Paul, kindly, but he's such a genius that it's like, I like to poke at him just to see what he says and does. And so that was our little quarantine project, was developing the Fiore, and I'm really excited about how it turned out.
Nice. Awesome. Well, can you share a little bit about the guitar, the philosophy behind it?
Awesome. Turns out I have one of them. Here it is. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I'm a single coil humbucker type player. I mean, those are the sounds I like to have at my disposal. I like that sort of S style, Strat style sound, and then I've sort of just dress it up, kind of beyond maybe what you normally find. I mean, the word that everyone's throwing around is super Strat. So it's like, okay, fine, if that's the vernacular we'll use, that's cool. And so I had to have some single coil pickups that had a nice low end, a nice mid range. I like a big single coil sound, and then kind of be able to sort of rein it in a little bit, maybe with the tone control or something. But for me, designing a guitar like this, the neck pickup had to be sort of the focus point first, and then we started working on the humbucker, tested a bunch of different humbuckers that we wound to just get the mid-range just right, so that it gives you that push over the edge with an overdriven sound, but so it's not too dark to where you can't really play it clean. What I didn't want it to sound like was somebody had stuck an aftermarket humbucker in a Stratocaster. I wanted everything to sound cohesive. And with these knobs on here, you can blend the neck and the middle together, or not really blend them, but like select them at the same time to kind of get that faux telly sound. So the guitar does a whole bunch of different sounds. It's kind of a Swiss Army knife guitar in a sense. And we went with an ash body, which I've always loved. It gives me that nice pop, that snap. Same with the maple neck. So we took some inspiration from some of the other guitars that I've played to kind of like develop the sound of the Fiore, So
that's cool.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. So it definitely seems like it suits your playing style then, having sort of seen some of the other instruments that you're using.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, sorry, go ahead.
No. You go ahead. You go.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, yeah, I mean, it's sort of a extension of my path down, the journey of what I hopefully can try to make myself sound like. But I wanted to do it. I wanted to make it a guitar that like everyone could have that experience with. I said in the launch video, like, I want this guitar to sound like you. And I mean that. Like, I don't, the point of buying a signature instrument, you're not going to necessarily sound like the person on the headstock, but I want it to sound like whoever picks it up, which is why I guess I put my name on it, because it was our concept or whatever. But the idea is that it will help you get your thing together. Right. So, yeah.
Is there a particular sound on it that you find that you gravitate towards the most? Like that it's kind of like your favorite, or you just love them all?
I kind of use them all.
Yeah.
Which was kind of the point, there isn't really a bad sound on the guitar. And the thing that I noticed about it, I never really used tone controls all that much, but this one I do, because you get different flavors. And I think what's neat, especially about the humbucker, the neck pickup, it's got just the right amount of brightness where it'll poke out in the mix, but if you need it. But if you don't, if you just roll this down about halfway, it gives it this nice blooming round thing, which I really dig. So it's nice to have that option, because usually with Strat stuff, I just leave everything on 10 all the time. So it's kind of cool to have that flexibility.
Very cool. And do you have any, I saw the launch video and things and some other content that you've been putting out. Actually, some video today that you were wearing a unicorn suit. Gosh. I got to ask you about
that. Where is that? It's in my bedroom. We'll just leave it at that.
Is that a signature item as well?
No, my wife bought them for us for Halloween like a couple of years ago. So I have one, she has one, and my little daughter has one.
That's cool.
So so we very cool unicorns, but it's actually like really comfortable. Like if you just want to lounge,
I'm sure,
or something. So yeah, that's I don't know, whatever. It was George Tripp's from Way Huge is crazy, and so I had to dress up as a crazy thing for his crazy pedal. Which is great. So
right. Yeah. No, that's cool. I just didn't know if we were going to see any more content with the.
I could have just showed up for the interview wearing the unicorn costume, as if people, didn't like me to begin with. Now they really don't. So,
oh, that's great. What about new music? Do you have any new music coming out or?
Yeah, I do. In April, I will have the second installment of the Baritone Sessions, which is a very frou-frou name for a record that's primarily baritone electric guitar based, kind of like funk rock fusion stuff. And so got 10 tracks, whole bunch of cool guests. It's a lot of music on that record. A lot going on. So that'll come out on digital platforms, CDs. We got vinyl. There'll probably be some cool t-shirts or something.
Right.
And then hopefully there will be a tour with it, whenever that can happen. But for now, you can just check it out online, I guess.
Right. So is it
April 16th, I think it comes out.
What got you into playing baritone guitar?
Yeah, well, it was sort of it's kind of a happy accident, I guess. I had purchased one just to have as like a session tool, and then just kind of started farting around on it and wrote a tune for Snarky Puppy, this song called Jefe, which is a bonus track on Culture Vulture. And I think I just wanted to, I had this riff that I'd written, but I was like, it's a cool riff, but maybe it's not as unique enough as it could be. What can I do to make it different without just changing the riff? So I started playing it on a baritone guitar, and it kind of like entered my mind into this whole other world of like playing funk rhythm guitar on something that kind of feels like a bass, which is always, I love bass and I love funk rhythm guitar. So that was kind of the happy marriage there. And so I started, that song turned out great. And after that, I started posting these little videos to like Facebook and YouTube and stuff that were really just demos of these like 1.5 minute kind of backing track, funky kind of things where I was just playing the baritone, just like one take down live, throw it up online. And people really responded well to it because I think nobody had heard something like that before. Or maybe they hadn't heard baritone guitar in that context. My experience with baritone guitar was primarily like country music or maybe indie rock and roll or something, or, but not like Minneapolis funk. And so maybe it was like a new thing that people kind of picked up on, and it kind of had a little bit of like viral success, as they say on the internet. And people just were asking for an album of it. And so I thought, oh, well, shoot. Okay. Now I need to make these minute-long jams into, 4 or 5 minute-long songs. And so I did a record the first one was called Deep, the Baritone Sessions, and that came out in spring of 19. And so, yeah, it just kind of came this like other alter ego, I suppose, to my composing, because most of my solo records are more melody based. For example, they're not as riff heavy, I guess, but I don't know. Eventually I'm going to have to kind of like figure out a way to make them all together. But, for now I just serve two masters, I suppose.
Oh, that's super cool. I mean, can't wait to hear, the next installment and what comes in the future as well. So
right on.
Thank you so much for spending the time with us today and talking to us about your signature guitar. And if you're interested in finding out more information about the Fiore or any other Paul Reed Smith instrument, you can head on over to American Musical Supply. And if you're interested in finding out more about Mark, if you want to just shout out your website, socials, and things like that.
Yeah. The website is marklettieri.com, Lettieri. I know it's a mouthful to spell, but hey. And then, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Instagram is MJ Lettieri because I don't know. I thought it was slick to use my first two initials, but I should have just been at Mark Lettieri. But I think somebody took it, so I couldn't be.
Well, the MJ is
fine. Whatever. People think my name is Matt or Mike or Mitchell or something, but it's okay.
No, MJ just adds to the funk. That's all.
Oh, okay. There you go. Right. Yeah. That MJ. He's
right.
Important. Okay. Cool, man.
Well, thanks so much again for taking the time. And if you're interested in, like I said, in finding out information about Mark's guitar or any other PRS instruments, you can head on over to AmericanMusical.com. Awesome. Thanks again, Mark.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Andrew.